This is a bit of a reactionary video from me, but with my recent string of early season team analyses, I feel like now is a good time to talk about the Grizzlies since they just had a big comeback win against the Pelicans, and it was Ja's first game back, and he had a big game at that as well. And with those team analysis videos, I spent a lot of time in those videos talking about specific topics that were specific to each team. So like, for example, with the Warriors, I talked about how they're in an interesting position for their long-term plans. With the Lakers, I talked about some of my concerns with their bench. But with the Grizzlies, really their only sole focus right now and sole worry is just trying to get into the playoffs right now. Because as of right now, they're looking 7.5 games back out of the 10 seed, and that's even after their win tonight. So they're going to have a very tough time trying to get into the play-in at least. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about if I think they're contenders or what I think their long-term plan should be. But really, I just want to talk about with Ja Morant coming back into the lineup, are they going to be able to turn their season around? And kind of talk about some of their long-term plans as well, depending on if they are able to make the play-in or even make some type of run in the playoffs. Before I talk about what I think about their team specifically, I want to talk about Ja and kind of what I think about him currently. So in his first game back, he had 34 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds, and he hit half of his shots, albeit he did miss all 5 of his three-point attempts. But he had a very good first night back, all things considered. He was a little bit winded at the end, and he was looking a little bit rusty. He did have like 5 turnovers, and some of those turnovers looked really dumb. And he didn't really handle the ball a lot, at least compared to his standards. They're having Desmond Bane do a lot of that, and I think that's just because they kind of want to ease Ja in and kind of get his conditioning up to speed as well. But he had a very big second half. I forgot what the point total was for his second half, but he probably scored like over 2/3 of his points in the second half. And the rest of the Grizzlies also had a big second half. But in the end, it was kind of like a storybook ending for his first game back, where he hits this game winner like 7 seconds left, and he just ISOs and, drives, spins, shot goes instantly in. And I honestly just knew it was going to go in based on the night he was kind of having. So the Grizzlies were able to eke out a crucial win with a double-digit comeback in the second half, albeit Zion did kind of totally disappear in the fourth quarter, but a win's a win. As for what I think about Ja currently and kind of going forward in the season, in the next few seasons, I think he's gone very under the radar and quite frankly kind of getting underrated at this point. And really that's just because of all the controversy that's been surrounding him, and that's been deservingly so. But I think people kind of forget that, just 2 years ago he was an All-NBA player. Last year he was an All-Star as well. And the Grizzlies have committed to him as their franchise guy. So he's still one of the best players in the league, in my opinion. I think the jury is still out on if he's, a franchise guy or a guy that can lead you to a championship, but he's only 24, so he has a few more years to develop before he reaches his prime in his late 20s. And really, I want to see him kind of improve on a few things, like his shot selection, his efficiency, I guess his shot as well, playing defense a little bit better, at least getting a little bit more active in the passing lanes and, keeping his awareness up at all times. So I think it's certainly reasonable to say that Ja Morant can become a true number one option on a championship team in the next few years. Considering that he's only 24 and considering what he's shown us in his young career so far, I think that's reasonable. Time will tell. I think a good example for him is a player with a similar archetype to him. Not necessarily similar play style, but De'Aaron Fox, for example, when he was 24 years old, he was only averaging 23 points a game, and he didn't make the All-Star team. But now this year, at 26 years old, he's averaging 30 points a game, and he's getting his name thrown around in some MVP talks. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Ja kind of elevate his game, similar to how De'Aaron Fox did over the past few years. Now, the jury is still out on whether or not he's matured during his suspension, but so far so good, it seems. He didn't do anything dumb during his suspension. In fact, I think he was off social media. And the team vibes are a lot better than last year. Last year, they were very cocky and they had a very big target on that back. And that might have something to do with Dillon Brooks leaving. But things are looking good right now. We'll see how things go and whether or not Ja Morant can keep his personal life straight, because that's going to be just as important as whether or not he's going to develop into a true number one option. But as for the Grizzlies as a team, they are potentially poised to make some type of big run to get into the play-in by the end of the season, because they're a lot better than the record shows right now, and that's really just because they've been very injury-riddled. In fact, they've been the most injury-riddled team in the league so far this season. They've already had to sign like several players to like 10-day contracts just so they can have enough people on their bench. But as for the key players, they've only had Marcus Smart play 11 games. Luke Kennard's only played 8 games. Steven Adams had season-ending surgery before the season, and Brandon Clark hasn't played a game this season. Derrick Rose has missed a lot of time, and really they've had a lot of injuries to their entire roster, and that kind of explains, their terrible start. And of course, Ja not playing has also explained their terrible start, because as of right now, they're 9th in defensive rating, but they're dead last in offensive rating. So we know what side of the ball Ja is going to affect, so it's not going to be redundant like he's going to help their defense. They're sorely in need of some offense right now, and once Ja gets to speed, this team should be looking a lot better. And it's not just Ja coming back. Marcus Smart's going to be back this week. Luke Kennard's going to be back by the end of the month. And Brandon Clark may or may not come back this season. There hasn't been any reports on his injury so far. And it might not matter because it's going to be hard for him to get back into the rotation. But it's not really a question of whether or not this team's going to start winning more games. I fully expect that. The question is if they're going to get to at least the 10 seed, because right now they're kind of in the cellar, being 7.5 games back at the 10 seed. So there's a couple ways to look at whether or not they're going to be able to make their way into the play-in. One way would be looking at the winning percentage they're going to need to get to 500 versus the winning percentage they had last year. So if they want to end the season with 41 wins, they're going to have to win 60% of their games going forward. And comparing that to last year, they won 62% of their games, and that was good enough to get the second seed in the Western Conference. So looking at it from this perspective, it's going to be tough to get to that 10 seed, assuming that the 10 seed's about 500. Last year, both 10 seeds in both conferences were 40-win teams. And really, the West is very deep this year, so I'm definitely expecting that the 10 seed is going to have to win probably 40 games, maybe 39. So while it is true that the Grizzlies don't have to quite win like they had to do last year, they're very undermanned, so it's kind of hard to see them winning that much because they don't have Steven Adams, and Steven Adams was their starting center, and they don't have Brandon Clark, who was a big guy coming off of their bench for them, and they haven't really done anything to address the lack of these players either. And then add on top of that Ja Morant is not some type of Iron Man. He hasn't had any major injuries in his career, but so far in his career, he's only played, about 60 games every season in full season. So with all those factors, it's going to be tough to get to 40 or 41 wins, because even though they don't have to win at quite the pace that they did last year, they're missing 2 key guys. And who knows what's going to happen with Ja Morant and how healthy he's going to be this year, or how healthy everyone else is going to be this year as well. And then another perspective that you can look at that's making it look tough for the Grizzlies right now is just looking at how deep the Western Conference is and looking at how many teams are probably going to be a few games over 500 and well above where the Grizzlies could possibly end up. So, for example, just counting off the teams, I would expect for the Timberwolves, the Thunder, the Nuggets, the Kings, the Mavericks, the Clippers, and the Lakers and the Suns are probably going to be well above, like 41 wins or something. So that's already tough to overcome because there's really only, the last 2 seeds that they can fight for, in my opinion, due to how far back they are. And really, they're going to need a few teams to probably collapse. So, for example, the Pelicans are the 7th seed right now, but obviously they've had injury problems in the past. So we'll see what happens with them. The Rockets are also barely over 500 right now. So we'll see what kind of goes on with the rest of their season, but I think they're going to be a play-in team as well. You also have the Warriors, who are 2 games behind the 10 seed right now. But for example, if they have Steph get injured, then they're just out of the play-in race at that point. So they're going to probably need someone to kind of just mess up, because there's only really 2 spots that they can buy for, and they're already way, way behind those teams. But stranger things had happened. If we look at the Western Conference last year, the Pelicans were the 1 seed at one point in December, but by the end of the year, they ended up being like the 9 or the 10 seed, and they got eliminated in their first play-in game. And then we also saw with the Lakers last year, after the trade deadline, they started at like the 13 seed or something, and they ended up climbing to the 8 or the 7 seed and won their play-in game to immediately get into the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. I'm just kind of pointing out that the Grizzlies are a little bit short-staffed right now, and I think it's going to be hard for them to keep up that high winning pace that they're going to need to get into the play-in. I certainly think they're going to climb, and I think that they're going to be getting close, like 11 seed, 12 seed, definitely. But whether or not they're going to get 9 or 10 is probably going to depend on how big of a jump Ja is going to make this season, and whether or not, some team is going to end up collapsing, like, maybe the Pelicans or the Rockets, for example. And I'm not even going to kind of talk about whether or not I think they're contenders or something, because really they're just worried about making it into the play-in right now. And I don't think they're contenders regardless, kind of like with the Lakers last year, how they were able to make it to the Western Conference Finals despite being the 13th seed in February. I don't think that's the same case, because I think the Grizzlies are just a little bit too short-staffed. So honestly, I think it'd be better if they just miss the play-in this year so they can get a lottery pick and do something with that. But in terms of kind of like their long-term plans, I think, they should just be content right now and kind of continue this, Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson, and Desmond Bane experiment, because they're all young and they're all probably going to improve over the next few years. And I think they need to improve their role players some, but I think they just need to roll with these guys for the time being and just see how things go. Because they do have all their draft picks going for it, so they do have the option to, just exercise those or maybe trade those away. They don't have a lot of cap space going forward next season. As of right now, they're kind of flirting with that second apron, and that's because Desmond Bane's new contract is going to kick in. Right now, he's only making like $3.5 million. That's not going to be the case next year, so it's kind of a disappointment for them because they don't get a chance at trying to contend while they still have Desmond Bane on his rookie contract. So to kind of sum up everything I've said in this video so far, I didn't want to make some type of super profound or important statement because there's not that much going on with the Grizzlies right now. I kind of just wanted to take this opportunity with Ja coming back to kind of talk about what I think about their team and what I think about Ja. And just to kind of conclude what I thought about their play-in chances, I'm leaning towards them not making it because the West is very deep right now, and they're going to have to be winning almost as much as they were winning last year, despite missing 2 key players and, Ja Morant kind of being unpredictable with his injury history. So I'm leaning towards them not making it and probably getting, very close, but we'll see what happens. Strange things have happened, and they happened last year with Western Conference playoff seeding. But as for the state of the Grizzlies going forward into the future, I would still be optimistic on them because they're still a very young team and they're still kind of developing with their 3 key players. And we'll see what happens with Ja. I think he's gone under the radar, and I think he's become underrated as a player because of his off-court controversies. And we'll see whether or not he matures. He's looking mature as of right now. So we'll see what happens. I think the Grizzlies should keep rolling with this. And it'll be interesting to see next season if Ja is going to make another big jump and how the Grizzlies are going to kind of improve their bench as well. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos in the future. Comment something you have something to say. And thank y'all for watching. I guess I'll see y'all next time.